Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason and I'm here to bring you the fight picks for a fight night where Jessica Ai is taking on Cynthia Calvillo. That is a weird main event. There are some other pretty good fights on the card, but it's a little weak, it's a little shaky, let's be honest. And we're also going to go over our UFC 250 picks where we came in at about 58% accuracy overall. We had some good ones, we had some bad ones. Let's talk about them. Here's the show. All right, let's kick it off by talking about UFC 250. Like I said, about 58% accuracy. We went 7-5 on the night, so we still did pretty well, but there are some that we just didn't get and some that I was a little shaky on even going into it, but let's talk about it. So Amanda Nunes maintains her Lady GOAT status. She is unrivaled, unmatched, 135 and 145 pounds. That is 100% clear at this point. There's really no good challenge out there for Nunes, in my personal opinion. I think after the fight, they talked about Megan Anderson potentially fighting Nunes, but let's be honest, Nunes would walk right through her at least this point in her career. Could Megan become a better fighter in years to come? Absolutely, it's certainly possible. But when we're talking about lining up a contender in the next year to 6 months at any weight class that Amanda Nunes represents as the champion, I think we really don't have anybody competitive, let's face facts, unless, and this is the ace in the hole, this is the fight, this is really the only fight that I want to see Amanda Nunes in, is Shevchenko Nunes 3. Arguably, Shevchenko won one of those fights. In my opinion, I think she did. But she's 2-0. She's the only other competitive woman on the roster. And I think they got to play it out for a third time. It's not a rubber match. Nunes has won both of them, but we gotta get some kind of excitement going in these ladies' divisions. 115 is pretty much stacked. That one's on fire. But between 125, 35, and 45, there's two ladies throwing down, and them colliding again, both being champions, I think is a good sell. I think that's the only fight to make. It's the only fight I really want to see, because I don't want to see Amanda Nunes just beat the crap out of these up-and-comers like Felicia Spencer. Spencer's as tough as hell, but she could not compete with Nunes. Let's look quickly at the numbers here. 124 strikes to 42, 6 takedowns to 0, and Spencer's entire pathway to victory was on the ground. We had submission attempts, we had nice knockdowns. It was just all Nunes. There was really no point in the fight that I thought Spencer had it, and is what it is. We did get that one correct. Cody Garbrandt, Rafael Sunsao, moving on to the co-main here. I had picked the Sunsao here. One of the metrics had picked Garbrandt, so it was shaky. And we didn't put that one on the Patreon. The two that we did put on the Patreon, there were a lot of favorites this week. We went one with baby Ben Askren. We didn't get that one, but we did get Alex Perez defeating Jussier Formiga. So we went 1-1 on the Patreon, and that one wasn't too bad either. We basically broke even on that one, both being favored fighters. We didn't do as hot as we could have, but hey, it is what it is. Okay. Cody Garbrandt, though, he is back. I mean, that hook that he landed on his Sunsao was so perfect from a boxing perspective. It was all rotated through the hips. He didn't lift his back foot. He rotated beautifully off of it, and it was just amazing. I mean, it was shades of Mike Tyson in that, for sure. And Sunsao, he looked okay. I thought he looked a little better in the second round. But watching him fight, I really didn't think he was going to be able to hang with the speed of Garbrandt. And it wasn't necessarily the speed or attributes that I was worried about with Garbrandt. It was going to be his fight IQ. And that's why I still said we were picking a Sunsao, even though I didn't personally agree with it. Although I do always agree with the numbers, so hey, it is what it is. But yeah, his IQ seemed like it was there. I didn't see him put his foot on the gas before it warranted it. He seemed like he was composed. He was fighting in bursts. He wasn't just throwing everything down into one moment. He looked controlled. He looked like weaponized focus, and I enjoyed watching Cody Garbrandt make a great fight against the Sunsao. The question is, what's next for him? We got Sandhagen coming off a loss, which we'll talk about in a second. We got Dominic Cruz still floating out there, which I don't know if that one would be the most fire fight for Garbrandt personally, but I think that's a good fight. You got Aljo just won. You got Peter Yan, and there's a whole lot of really good fights out right there. for Garbrandt. I know Garbrandt's got some heat with Jan from a backstage thing, so that might be the fight to make. But we do need somebody to actually fight Peter Yan for the title that isn't named Jose Aldo, in my personal opinion. But hey, we'll see how things play out, and we'll see what the bantamweight division has to offer. We did get that one wrong, though. And one we did get correct, Aljamain Sterling chokes out Corey Sandhagen, 1 minute 28 seconds. Not much to say here. Aljo gets it to the ground very early. He chokes out Sandhagen. Sandhagen does survive for a moment. He does pop out, but the hooks are too strong. Aljo is too good, and they're just too dry at that point. There's not enough slip and slide action going on just that early into a fight. And Sandhagen is getting choked out, and we pick up a W. Another one we got correct as well. Neil Magny gets a unanimous decision over Anthony Rocco Martin. Not a bad fight. It was all right. Not too much to say about it. Neil Magny outstrikes Rocco 2-1. And another one, performance of the night, $50,000 for Sean the Sugar Show O'Malley. He just knocks out Eddie Wineland with a beautiful shot, a walk-off home run if there's ever been one. And we had two beautiful bantamweight knockouts on Saturday night. First one being O'Malley, and then coming back with Garbrandt to kind of close things out towards the end there with the co-main. But O'Malley is here. He's also another great fight at 135 pounds. I'm not ready to throw O'Malley up at the best of the best personally. I think this guy still needs to be brought along. He needs to fight somebody who's edging the top, but is not necessarily a Garbrandt or a Jan yet. I think I want to see this kid fight at least one more time before he gets to the highest level. And maybe that's a Marlon Moraes right now. I'm not saying Moraes isn't the highest level, but he's kind of had his chance. He's not really in the conversation, in my opinion, of who's going to be, fighting for this vacated title. I think a Marlon Moraes might be a decent fight, something like that. Somebody, hell, even a Sunsao would have been a good fight for him. Obviously, he just got knocked out and been fighting for a while, but somebody up at the high level that isn't really at that 4-man tournament. It seems like things are playing out to look like. So we'll see how that one plays out for him, but we did get that one correct with the Sugar Show. And one that I did get wrong, this is one of my Patreon calls. Alex Caceres dismantles Chase Hooper. Really sad to see that one. Chase Hooper, he is a tactician on the ground, but when you cannot get it to the mat, you get sloppy takedowns, and your striking is way far behind Alex Caceres. Things just play out this way. He was outstruck 2-1, and at no point did I think he looks really decent in the fight. Chase Hooper, I thought honestly he was going to win. I didn't think his striking, or I don't know if I overestimated his striking or way underestimated Alex Caceres' striking, and things just did not work out. And we ended up picking up an L on this one. Hooper needs to work on his striking, or he needs to work on his ability to change levels so that he can make guys worried about the takedown and get more effective at it. Kid's young, though. He's got plenty of time to develop, and he needs more fighters like Bruce Leroy to push the limit on him. And the next one we got wrong. Ian Heinich knocks out Gerald Meerschaert. This one was 1 minute, 14 seconds in. Not much to say. Heinich gets a great knockout very early into the fight. And a few other ones here to close things out. Cody Stamann defeats Brian Kelleher. Got this one correct. The emotion going through Kelleher was... not Kelleher. My apologies. Cody Stamann was high. He had recently had a death in his family. Cody's 18-year-old brother had passed away unexpectedly. His brother Jacob at the really young age of 18 years old, and that's a tragedy in my personal opinion. And I don't know how you fight through something like that, but he felt like he was going out and honoring his brother by, fighting through everything going on, all the adversity, and he went out there and he put on a good performance, and he picked up a great win over Kelleher. So hats off to Cody Stamann. We got it correct, but the bigger deal there is that Stamann fought through adversity, and he picked up a win against immeasurable emotional weight. No doubt about it. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Maki Patola defeats Charles Byrd. Got this one wrong. Charles Byrd looked pretty good in the first round. I thought he was actually dominating Patola and did win round one, but heavy hands for Coconut Bombs. Picks up his first UFC win, and he knocks out Charles Byrd in the second round. Next one we got correct. Alex Perez knocks out Jussier Formiga early on. Solid fight. Performance of the night money for Alex Perez. He definitely deserved it. And then the last two here, Devin Clark defeats Alonzo Menifield. I have a lot to say about this one, or at least a little bit, because I did watch this full fight, and I thought Menifield was going to shut the door early. He had rocked Devin Clark very early on, but he did not have the fight IQ yet, and did not have the wherewithal to know how to fight deep into a 3-round war into the deep water. He had a hard time swimming once the tides came in, and Devin Clark knew that. He fought that style. He only put it on in the last 2 rounds, and Menifield, burned his gas tank out. And, it happens. You can't overwhelm everybody like you expect to. And I think that's a lesson learned for Menifield. I expect him to come back better than he was in this fight against Clark. I think his IQ is going to be higher. He's going to know what it takes to win. And once he can put the mental aptitude with that godlike physique, explosive power, he is going to be a force to be reckoned with at lightweight. He's just not there yet. So the well-trained Devin Clark, the Jackson Wink product, did get it done. And I had said that going in on the podcast that, that training camp can devise a plan, and they clearly did. So, we got this one wrong, but it is what it is. And the last one, Herbert Burns defeats Evan Dunham. Solid fight, gets a nice rear naked choke, a minute 20 in, so not too much to say about it. So we were off and on. We did pretty well on the main card, went 4-1, just missed the Garbrandt fight, and then obviously the undercard was a little weaker for us, and we ended up going 7-5. So hey, not too bad. We ended up doing better than 50% accuracy. So overall, I'm still happy with how we came out, but obviously you always want to do a little better, and we were rolling so hard coming in the previous week that I thought we were going to do a bit better. But is what it is. Let's move on. Let's look ahead. Let's talk about Jessica Eye versus Cynthia Calvillo. All right, so I'm not going to lie. This is going to be some tough assessing here because we have a lot of somewhat unknown fighters. It's basically the entire card is like one big prelim to a pay-per-view, to be perfectly honest. They're not bad fights. There are some decent fights. The co-main is my favorite, with Marvin Vettori finally getting his shot in there, but Cynthia Calvillo, Jessica, I don't know how this, I don't know how this is a main event. I don't know what they're trying to set up for. I don't know what they're setting up with this. It doesn't really, there's no real weight to it, I guess you could say. It's a flyweight bout. Jessica already lost to Shevchenko. Jojo Caldor is getting the next title shot. Maybe Calvillo gets one after. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're trying to accomplish here. But let's talk about what we have. So we got Jessica taking on Cynthia Calvillo, and it should be a decent fight. Obviously, Jessica has the experience. She has that much of an advantage. But we got to talk about the fact that Calvillo just looks she's a little bit younger. She's about a year younger. And she just has a higher output. She's going to have a little more speed, and her takedown aptitude is higher. She's better on the ground. And I think, honestly, she's better on the feet. She's a better version of Jessica Eye in a lot of ways, and she's also had better recent success. She did have her draw with Mariana Rodriguez, but she got 2 decisions, one in 2018 and 2019 over Courtney Casey and Pollyanna Botello. Now, the draw aside, I think she's looking pretty good coming into this fight, whereas Jessica Eye, her Viviana Rougeau fight, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was anything to write home about, even though she did get the win, and then obviously the head kick loss to Valentina. Jessica Eye is basically a legend at this point. Well, she's a pioneer of women's MMA. She's 33 years old. Second wave of women's MMA, if you will. But I don't think she's going to be quite with it. I think it's Calvillo's time. The Tiger Muay Thai product, also just bring up Tiger Muay Thai, that is another camp that trained Valentina and her sister. This is a camp that can defeat Jessica Eye if they know what they're doing, and clearly they do. I got to go to Calvillo in this one. I think she's your pick in the main event. All right, here's a fight I'm a little more excited about. The Italian Dream, Marvin Vettori, is taking on Carl Roberson in what should be an amazing middleweight contest. I think that Marvin Vettori is going to come out victorious here, and he just looks so good lately. I've said it before about this guy. He lost Israel Adesanya via split decision back in 2018, and then he's won 2 unanimous decisions since then. I think that he is a very technical, very good striker. And if he's good enough to hang with Israel Adesanya, beat him on at least one judge's scorecard, I think he's going to be good enough to defeat Karl Roberson. Nothing against Roberson, though. He has back-to-back wins over Wellington Thurman and Roman Kopylov, but I don't think he's going to be able to get it done here. I think that Vettori's striking is going to be his pathway to victory. Roberson has more submissions over his number of wins here. He's coming at 4 submissions, 2 knockouts over his 9 wins, and of course his 2 losses. One thing to keep in mind as well, though, even though Vettori fairly, good-sized guy for this division, Roberson is a little bit bigger, but they do have the equal reach here, so I don't think there's going to be any real side that's going to have an advantage there, but the ability of Vettori to get in and out of the pocket, to use this technical striking, and things are going to be there, and he even has the takedown defense that's there if he needs to prevent Roberson from getting this to the mat. He has an 80% stoppage rate for takedowns, and so I think that if Roberson gets into trouble, it's going to be panic wrestling, and he's going to have a hard time taking, the reins back from Vettori and getting back into control by shooting a good shot. So in this one, I got to go with the Italian Dream. He's the pick in the co-main. All right, in our next one here, we are going to have Ray Borg taking on Merab Dvalishvili. And in this one here, it's kind of a shame for Ray Borg. He has such a hard time making 125 pounds because he is going to end up being defeated by this natural bantamweight fighter. Ray Borg really not allowed to fight at his natural weight class anymore, and so now he's being put at a disadvantage. We saw it in the Simone fight, despite having a split decision, but he saw it in the Simone fight. Simone a lot bigger. Borg just not able to wrestle Simone down like he was other guys back at his flyweight career. Looking at Merab, he's not going to do that either here. Merab, again, is bigger and has very good takedowns and very good takedown defense himself. This Georgian, and he's not from the state of Georgia, this Georgian fighter is going to have the skills necessary to prevent Ray Borg's avenues to victory. I believe that he training at Saralango, his exposure to high-level BJJ, his wrestling background, his striking ability. Ray Borg doesn't really land many strikes. He really likes to grapple and score wins that way. That's really his number one avenue, and I don't think he's going to be able to do that, which means he's going to be at a deficit not only in the striking game, but in the grappling game. And let's also talk about the fact Merab looks amazing right now. 3 wins in a row over some decent names. Terrion Ware, Brad Katona, and Casey Kenny. This guy has gotten a lot better since he last lost to Ricky Simone in 2018, and the hits just keep on coming as he's going to dismantle Ray Borg and pick up a great win as the Saralango product. We are going with Merab Dvalishvili in this contest. All right, I hate his fight name, but I like to watch him fight. Andre Touchy-Feely is going to be taking on Charles Air Jourdain in what should be a very, very good contest. Both of these guys are very competent strikers, and I expect this thing to stay standing mostly, but I am picking Feely here, and part of that is because I believe that he has in the back pocket the ability to get this to the mat and work it better than Jourdain. Feely has better takedowns, better takedown defense. Jourdain, not many fights in the UFC where he hasn't, really needed to use any of the takedown game, but I think it's going to be better coming out of Team Alpha Male than Jourdain. Again, exposed to a lot of wrestlers, exposed to a lot of high-end talent. Feely is when he trains over with Uriah Faber out in Sacramento and the rest of his guys. Okay, you got Jiu-Jitsu out there. You obviously had Cody Garbrandt in the past. This is a great stable. You even have the young Chinese fighter. His name escapes me right now. You have a lot of great young talent at these smaller weight classes, and I think Feely is another one of these guys that maybe he's not at Sojik Youssef levels where he just took an L, but he is good enough to defeat Charles Jourdain. I am picking Andre Touchy-Feely to pick up a win in Vegas. Another solid bantamweight contest. We are going to have Jordan Espinosa take on the Bumblebee Mark De La Rosa. And in this one, I think it's pretty even, to be perfectly honest. But I'm going to give the slight edge here to Espinosa. I think his striking is a little bit better, and his striking defense is a little bit better. I think he's going to be able to out technique De La Rosa, who I think relies a little too heavily on his takedown game and his ability to score submissions, which he does have 6 submissions over his 11 wins and 1 knockout. Granted, Espinosa also has that in his back pocket too, so I think they kind of nullify each other there. Espinosa 7 submissions over his 14 wins, but it's really the striking, I think, of Espinosa. He's not a knockout artist, but I think the volume, the accuracy, the technique is going to be there, where if he needs to get De La Rosa off balance, get him thinking about those shots, he's going to, I think, hesitate to make his move and execute his own avenue to victory to pick up a win. So I think De La Rosa here is just going to run into a brick wall named Jordan Espinosa, and he's the pick in this bantamweight matchup. In what should be a very good lightweight matchup, this might be a good dark horse fight of the night here. We have Charles Boston Strong Rosa taking on Kevin Angel of Death Aguiar, and this is a really, really good fight here. Obviously, we have Rosa. He came off of his dismantling loss to Bryce Mitchell, a guy that touted himself as a submission expert, and he was totally outdone on the mat by Bryce Mitchell. And hey, and almost anybody would at this point at this weight class. So he's looking to come back, and now he's taking on a phenomenal striker, somebody who has just as deadly hands as Bryce Mitchell has twisters, right? Arm triangles. And I don't see this one playing out well, honestly, for Rosa. He's eager to get back in there. He's eager to avenge a loss. But I think Aguiar looks really, really good when you compare him to Rosa. I think that his striking is going to be there, and I think it's going to take its toll on a fighter that I'm not sure really should be coming back right now. I think that Rosa should probably take a little bit of time off instead of trying to avenge a loss. We've seen guys that have done this before, and it tends not to go very well for them. Guys like Michael Bisping, for instance, when he lost his belt to GSP, bounces right back to try to fight Kelvin Gastelum. Didn't work out so hot for him, and I don't like this here. Even though Aguiar hasn't had a win yet in the last couple outings here, he has losses to Zubara Tukov and a loss to Dan Ige. I think that he himself is hungry and eager to get a win. He is fresh, and he is the pick. I am picking Kevin Aguiar, the Angel of Death, to defeat Charles Boston Strong Rosa. All right, our next one here, we have a ladies bantamweight matchup where Julia Avila is going to be taking on Gina Danger Manzani. And this one, kind of an interesting fight. You have Julia who's coming into the UFC, has 1 win against Panini Cainzad, and now she's taking on Gina Manzani, who got bounced out of the UFC. Last had her win in the UFC in 2017, took back-to-back losses. Macy Chiasson, Lena Landsberg got bounced, went to another promotion, picked up a quick rear naked choke win, and is now back. And I think being back, I think knowing what it's like to get bounced out, I think the numbers also support it. I like Gina Manzani here. She has a little more experience at 6-3 than Avila's 7-1. She also has more experience at the higher levels. Right now, Avila is the only one she's beaten is Panini Cainzad. It's the only person she's fought that's at this high caliber, whereas Manzani maybe wasn't as successful, but she's realistically been in the UFC since 2017 and made her debut against Sarah McMahon. I mean, this woman has fought some great fighters in her tenure in the UFC. She knows what it's like to be under the big lights, and she knows what it's like to get a win against competition like Avila, somebody who hasn't had that experience yet. And so I am going to give it to Gina Manzani here. I think she's the pick in Vegas. All right, and our next one here, I think it's going to be an okay fight. We got Tyson Nam taking on Ryan Benoit. And in this one, I think Nam is on the verge of getting bounced out of the UFC. He probably has a 3-fight deal, and I don't know if his contract is going to get renewed because he has back-to-back losses, one against Kai Kara France, one against Sergio Pettis. Granted, those are some of the best guys that this division has to offer at flyweight, but still, I don't like his chances here against Ryan Benoit. Ryan Benoit has been in the UFC for a time himself. He's been in the UFC since 2013. He's off and on, but he has defeated guys like Pettis in the past. I had to go back 2015, but he still defeated these guys. He had a split decision loss back in 2019, and he came off a win going into that one against Mokhtarian after a kind of a layoff back to 2017. But I still like Benoit here. I think he is going to prove to be the better fighter. I think he's going to prove to be the faster fighter. Nam, let's face facts, he's 36 years old, fighting at flyweight, and that is a tough proposition because as you get older, the speed drops off and it becomes more and more difficult. I am picking Ryan Benoit here to pick up a win in this flyweight matchup. All right, and our last one before we get to the debuters, we are going to have Jordan Griffin taking on Derek Minor in what should be a pretty decent contest here at featherweight. In this one, I like Jordan Griffin. I think that he is a solid fighter, and I believe that he'll get a win here. Minor does have the experience, but I don't think he has the training. Griffin is over at Rufus Sport, and he, hasn't looked the best, over his time here. Losses to Chaz Kelly, losses to Dan Ige, but he did get a win over TJ Brown, and I think he's back, and I think he's going to be able to defeat a guy like Derek Minor, who doesn't really have any big wins. He only just recently got to the UFC. He'd gotten bounced out of Dana White Contender Series to Herbert Burns. He got bounced in his, first UFC fight to Grant Dawson. I don't think he's going to get a win here in the UFC just yet. He could someday, but Jordan Griffin is going to prove what it takes to be in the UFC, and he's going to prove it to Derek Minor, especially by picking up a win. We are picking Jordan Griffin to pick up a win in Vegas. All right, we have two fights. One is a late replacement. We have Anthony Ivy taking on, let's see here, Christian Aguilera. And so in this one, I believe Ivy will get the win here. Not a lot to go off of considering debut fighters, but I like the explosiveness of Ivy. I think that he has a great shot here with his 5 KOs and 3 submissions going 8-2. It looks really solid coming in with only stoppages in his Fury FC days, and then over at WXC, he got a knockout in the 4th round. Coming in as a really hot product. Then we have another fight here. Hannah Seifers is going to be taking on Mariana Agapova, and Agapova here looks like a force to be reckoned with. She's an American top team product. She is a foreigner, of course. She's an import. She's 23 years old, and she's moved herself all the way into the middle of the card. Not something you usually see for somebody debuting here. Yes, so she is from Kazakhstan, fighting over at the Dormitories and American Top Team. She's 8-1, and just looking at her, she looks pretty phenomenal right now. She did lose her Dana White Contender Series fight last year, but she's a year older, so only 22 at the time, and I think that she is going to put on a show here against Hannah Seifers, who probably shouldn't have come back so soon. Again, granted, she didn't take a beating to Dern. It was a quick outage, but I don't think Seifers is going to get a win here either. I think all she's doing is setting the stage for Agapova to make a statement in her real entrance into the UFC here, and I am picking Maria Agapova to pick up a win. That is the more exciting, I think, of the 2 debut bouts. We'll see how things play out. So let's go over them one more time. We got Calvillo, Vittori, Davali-Vishvili, Fili, Espinosa, Aguiar, Mazzani, Benoit, Griffin, Ivy, and Agapova to round things out. So this fight will be taking place on Saturday, June 13th. Of course, we'll be back with a retrospective and fight picks shortly thereafter. But if you have to get in touch with me in the meanwhile, please reach out to the Fighting Spirit Podcast at fightingspiritpodcast@gmail.com. Get on the Facebook page, YouTube comments. There's the Patreon as well. We'll be doing more picks for that coming up later on this week. So yeah, everything's coming out as fast and furious. And next week we have another pretty good matchup here. Looks like Curtis Blades is going to be taking on Alexander Volkov. Pretty decent one there. We got Jillian Roberts taking on Talia Santos, and Marc-Andre Barrier taking on Oscar Pachota. I do like Oscar Pachota offhand in that one. So that card's still coming together. There's also been a bunch of firefights announced for later on in the year. UFC 251, where Fight Island is going to be in Abu Dhabi, boys and girls. We're going to have Kamaru Usman taking on Gilbert Burns. We're going to be having Aldo taking on Peter Yan. I just read about that one. So things are coming at us real fast, real furious. Things are looking fun. And yeah, I'll bring you all the best fight picks in the biz for each one of those cards each and every week. So until I speak with you again next time, happy fight picking.